Welcome to the public conference Montenegro Goes Europe, the answer to the Russian war against Europe is Montenegro as a EU member 2024. I welcome everybody who is listening to this video and also who will be following this activity on social media. I want to thank you very much for your support, and I will start now with the proceedings. Montenegro as EU member in 2024 is the answer we need in Europe. We need Montenegro in the EU. That's after Sweden and Finland joining NATO. That's the logical next step to also open the EU directly, not only giving candidate status to Ukraine, Moldova, Bosnia. Congratulations, it's all fantastic historic achievements. And also to start the negotiation with Macedonia and Albania, but Montenegro is ready and has to be the EU member in 2024. In this event, I will now outline why. I will also give some overview about the recent activities, and I will call for the European Union to open up the EU for the new member. For this, we have written a public letter to the Austrian government, because it should be more or less the Austrians, together with the Croatians, the Slovenians, there's of course many friends, and also the Romanians, Bulgarians, Greeks, and also of course the big countries like Germany and France. It should be all countries have to consent, obviously, but most important, the Austrian government should be very clear carrying this issue towards success. And that's very much in the Austrian historic and moral obligation. To this extent, I've written, and we as Association on Montenegro Goes Europe, as registered Austrian NGO, we have written to the Austrian government, to the Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor, the Foreign Minister, EU membership of Montenegro by 2024 with the support of Austria. We said very clearly Montenegro's accession to the European Union by 2024 is realistic. The citizens of Montenegro will be able to vote in the 2024 European Parliament elections. Just as Austria made it possible for Croatia in 2013, against the resistance of many in the peak of the Euro debt crisis, Austria should now work just as hard for the quick accession of Montenegro. In the following speaks in favor of the inclusion of Montenegro. First, Montenegro has the euro as the currency since 2002. Congratulations, 20 years this year. Very wise decision, I recommend for all candidate countries. Montenegro has implemented all required economic legal reforms. Basically, Montenegro is ready. Montenegro is economically similar developed as Bulgaria and Romania was when they joined the European Union, and it's actually quite close to Bulgaria. So we are really speaking about a very developed economy here, and it's ready for the EU. Montenegro is also with the common security and foreign policy of the EU, especially in the war of Russia against Ukraine and all of Europe. I think that's most important, the sanction regime and all the policies which Montenegro has fully been compliant and supportive, and that's very important. Montenegro has also supported the sanctions and has broken all these strong links with Russia which there were, and that's very important. Montenegro is now already 5 years this year, since 2017, a NATO member, and is an ally of most of the EU countries, because, as you know, all my followers, that it's very much the fact that most EU countries, with 4 unfortunate exemptions of Malta, Austria and Cyprus and Ireland, which want to form now a pro-Russian neutral alliance, it is the situation that all others are with America in NATO. And I'm confident that I will also lead Austria and campaign successfully to conclusion. And I've written now an article about Malta's NATO accession. Yeah, so it's very much, the budget is also small for Montenegro, and it's a small country, so it's not very expensive. And also we can show that we are 28 countries again. That matters also. We just lost the country with the United Kingdom. It's time to get one country back, and Montenegro is a good completion of being 28 again. It shows that the EU is attractive. And also we show that the Western Balkan is very attractive, and also it contrasts to the situation in Serbia, And we should reward good behavior and punish bad behavior, like reward Montenegro, punish Serbia. Montenegro has turned away from Serbia and the faithful Russian policy and is clearly EU-oriented. Serbia is increasingly turning away from the EU and towards Russia, partly because increasingly doubtful the seriousness of the EU readiness for admission. No, that was probably not my main point. Currently, Serbia is not ready and not willing to join. Serbia's orientation towards Europe will return when, through the rapid admission of Montenegro, there is finally movement towards EU enlargement. Austria's support for Serbia's accession to the EU under current conditions leads to profound problems within the EU. With Vučić, Orban would have an ally within the EU to fulfill Putin's wish, to weaken Europe and by destroying the EU. What the EU needs are member countries that strengthen the European Union and do not weaken it. Montenegro shows very clearly which side it is on, namely the EU side. The EU accession should reward countries that undertake profound reforms and work hard to become fit for the community of the European Union, strengthen the democracy, the rule of law and respect for human rights. Montenegro is doing this very actively. To keep in that way, rapid progress is now needed on the way to EU membership. And so we discussed many of the issues like the treaty which was signed between Montenegro and the Serbian Orthodox Church, and that was signed this summer. And it's very controversial because it grants one religion more rights than other churches and religion, and as a result the Serbian Orthodox Church also increases the influence of Serbia and thus of Russia in Montenegro. The critics of this agreement see this endangering Montenegro's path to the EU. It is now even more important to act quickly. Montenegro's current EU orientation has to be used before the influence of Serbia and Russia turns the situation on its head. I repeat this I have written already in the summer. And we want Montenegro in the European Union. And Austria must use all the political means to enable Montenegro's EU membership by 2024. Courageous and determined action, Mr. Schallenberg, I mean you. It's very important. Austria's commitment to enlargement to include the Western Balkans must focus on the rapid admission of Montenegro, not Serbia, as the next step. I was very clear here. And you should be a bridge builder towards Montenegro, not to Russia, not Serbia. And then I've mentioned many important things. The issue of corruption is an excuse and reason for blocking admission to the EU and should be treated with caution by Austria. Not that anyone is questioning the legitimacy of this issue, but it is a certain problem when we over-focus on that one. Montenegro is already working intensively and seriously in the fight against organized criminality and corruption, and this should be rewarded, and logically everything can be settled much better inside the European Union. I'm also talking in this letter about Austria and Montenegro common history. I call as well for an apology of Austria for its colonial past, and we are going then to a partnership agreement between the various federal states of Austria, 9, and regions which I will also outline here in Montenegro to fast-track the cooperation between Montenegro. This is my open letter from August 2022 in the name of the association, and I would like to make the case now here in Podgorica on the 12th of October that this open letter has not been answered by the Austrian government, and they have not been performing very well towards Montenegro, and I criticize this. There should be much better support and much clearer support for Montenegro from the side of the Austrian government. Now I have to do a little bit of, it's always with this self-fixing tape, there is always the danger that something falls. Sorry for that. So now we come to the report about the activities. We had here in July the activity to go with the Secretary General Kati Schneeberger. We were 3 days here in Podgorica, meeting several stakeholders and introducing the new association. That was very successful. In July then we had the workshop Yes to the Open EU for the European Balkans and No to the Open Balkans for Russia. So absolutely we are advocating against Open Balkans. because Open Balkans is a Russian project against Montenegro, against Kosovo, against Bosnia. And of course, Serbia is here abusing the idea of openness for its own specific imperialist agenda, and this must be rejected. I'm strongly criticizing all the EU stakeholders who are support, and also American stakeholders, unfortunately. Some of them have continuously supported Open Balkans, and we should not do that. It is a big mistake. And we have here reported about our visit, about the workshop in July, and this was quite successful. And we hope that now there will be also Albania and North Macedonia ending their participation in the Open Balkans. I think that will be imminent, and then this whole project, which is just unnecessary because we have the Regional Cooperation Council, will be fading into the abyss of history, and nobody needs it because Serbia will be isolated. We have now 3 NATO allies into the European Union. It's part of a broader strategy, everything, which I will also explain here. Montenegro, Albania, and North Macedonia in the EU. It's not only Montenegro. It's of course by far the most advanced country. But contrary to what currently is happening, some alignment or in the Open Balkans between Albania, North Macedonia and Serbia, it's absolutely wrong. What we need, Montenegro, Albania and North Macedonia are the 3 NATO allies. They must be in the EU in 2024. This is the right strategy. This is what the EU should do. This is what NATO should support. And this is the way forward. And I've tweeted now extensively on my YouTube page, on my Twitter page, on all my publications and interview. I say exactly this. I was now just in North Macedonia, I was in Albania now for several days, and I'm now in Montenegro, and in all 3 countries I say the same. These are the 3 countries which are our allies. They should be in the European Union, they're very fast, with the help of America, with the help of all Europeans, and Serbia must be isolated. To this extent, I just gave an interview actually yesterday, the day before yesterday. It will be published very soon, and it's very clear that the consequence of the Russian action, the Russian war, and the Serbian support for the Russian war, Serbia's EU membership status must be frozen, and all financial support for Serbia by the EU from EIB, EBRD, EU, IPA, everything must be frozen until Serbia breaks with Russia fully and forever, until Serbia repents her criminal past in the Balkan Wars, in the 4 wars against Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Kosovo. And of course, they must repent their crimes, and then Serbia must recognize Kosovo. Serbia must end the blockade of Bosnia. Serbia must stop bullying Montenegro. Serbia must support Ukraine fully, and only then Serbia can join the European Union, and also, of course, to adopt the euro before, and also to join NATO. Otherwise, no way Serbia to be in the EU, and until then, all the financial support must be frozen. Bosnia and Kosovo must join NATO in 2023. This is very important. We are anyhow then via NATO securing the 2 nations via the KFOR and the IFOR contracts, and that is secure. These nations are so protected by the West, but they were liberated as well by NATO, so it's logical after some time to turn them into full allies, and that's part of this broader debate, which I'm very much in favor. It's time to throw NATO's doors wide open, and of course Bosnia and Kosovo want to join NATO, and they should. And no, this will not lead to any world war or something, because Russia and Serbia will never attack NATO, because we are the most powerful alliance of the West. We, as Austrian, I'm not member, but I try to change that one as well, and I will be successful with Austria's NATO succession, and that will be very good accession. Yes, NATO ally Montenegro must be awarded and promoted into the EU 2024. I also say that I think it's very good here to visible, because Montenegro has with Albania, Tritan Abazovic, the Prime Minister, went to Kiev. That was very good. And also Montenegro and North Macedonia have supported Ukraine's NATO accession. That is very important. And Serbia has met relatively often. I think Mr. Vucic is always phoning Mr. Putin, and they are like having this kind of man's friendship. And in Serbia, you see a huge rolling out of the Serbian flag, out of the Russian flag in Belgrade during the war. And it's quite outrageous. And I put very clearly as well here the 16th of March, I call for that to be the global Mariupol Genocide Day, because we know at least since the 16th of March, when that iconic building with so many people inside was bombed on purpose by Russia directly in order to kill these people, that's a major war crime. And that is also the major symbolic start of the genocidal phase of that war against Ukraine by Russia, which is now in many ways the Milosevic system of our times, and Putin is Milosevic of our time. I call again for him to end up in Den Haag as a war criminal. He must be indicted, starting for these crimes and for many others. But I think the most iconic and symbolic terror day, the genocidal day, is the 16th of March 2022, the Mariupol Genocide Day. And later since then, the world knows what's the nature of the Russian regime. And we should not reward the bad behavior of Serbia, but the good behavior of Montenegro. And then also punish Serbia by suspending and freezing the EU candidate status. I have also made it very clear to have the analogy and also explain it a bit, because some people might say 2024 is impossible, why so fast and why free and why the NATO members. But we acted exactly the same in the 2000s because there was, of course, the big wars were the Balkan Wars, and the Kosovo War especially was the biggest NATO liberation intervention in European recent history, or in all over European history. And then it was like this, that Bulgaria and Romania was then first taken into NATO in 2004, and then into the EU in 2007, and Croatia followed suit in 2013. I don't know why we waited another, 6 years for Croatia, but that was probably their own weakness in this kind of global financial crisis times. But the three countries were basically taken into the EU as an answer for the loyalty, and it was of course complicated, and there was later many debates why this was necessary, and why it was too early, and a lot of smart-ass people have talked negatively about Romania, Bulgaria, while in reality both countries have developed very much. What has not really happened so well is because we have not built the institutions to help them more to fight the corruption, and we have not been very generous on the infrastructure side, because unfortunately there was not a very good leadership in the West in these years. And we were busy with our own crises. But we luckily did it, and it was the right decision. Imagine one moment now in the next war with Russia, we are in this confrontation 20 years later, 22 years later. It would be terrible for the Western security if Romania, Bulgaria would not be in NATO and in the EU, and so that's very important there here. And here's the analogy. When we did it in the past with Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia as an answer to the appreciation of their loyalty in the Kosovo War, now we are at war again with Russia in Ukraine, and we have this absolute confrontation. And of course, it's very important to reward the loyalty of North Macedonia, Montenegro, Albania towards the West by what? Of course, they are NATO allies already. Of course, they should get the euro as currency, absolutely. And of course, they should be invited by 2024 to the European Union. That's, I think, very logically, and I cannot understand what we are waiting for. Yes, specifically about Austria, because it's Austrian NGO and I'm Austrian, I want to apologize officially in the name of Austrian people for the colonial crimes against the Montenegrin people in the 19th century. Austria was a colonial power from 1815 and towards 1918. And especially then during the Krivosje uprising, when the Montenegrinians were protesting and revolting. And especially, of course, in the First World War, there were horrendous crimes committed by the Austrian authorities against the Montenegrins, and that was very negative, and I want to apologize. We have a global debate about anti-colonial or colonial responsibility. Also, Austria has to face that, and we have it to face, of course, in our relation to Montenegro, but also in Bosnia, also in Serbia, and there's many other apologies required, and this is necessary to do that. But now, of course, one way to overcome the horrendous past is by EU integration, because there's a lot of solidarity inside the European Union, and we can achieve a lot of things together. And one way is to actively, of course, understand the past, have a joint historical commission, work about it, apologize, document the crimes, and also then support EU integration, because I think, we should not go down the line to compensate for the crimes of the 19th century. That's a bit far away. But we should then do this mechanism of solidarity inside the European Union. And that is the way. And Austria has this moral and political, strategic and political obligation for EU membership of Montenegro in 2024 as equal Europeans, as I say in this slide. And I completely agree with this, and I hope that there will be more wisdom and there will be this activity, first of all apology, then secondly active redemption, repentance, and also the clear support for EU membership, not somewhere in the future, not in 2029 or in 20 years or whatever Macron's timelines might be, but immediately right now. That is the way to do it. Good. I have also drafted a partnership program between the various regions. We have 7 federal states. Austria is a federal state, and that's very good for several reasons, because we have internal competition, we have devolved economic decision making, we have also regional kind of prosperity, and that's very good in Montenegro. That is still a major issue. And I see a lot of poverty in the southwest towards Albania, in the north towards Serbia and Kosovo, and there is much to be done beyond the coast and the capital, which are already very developed. Congratulations, that's good. But you need also this partnership project. I think it's very helpful to learn how a European economy and the state, a federal state, is organized. I don't talk for federalism for Montenegro, but I call for devolution and direct international relations and also real partnership between Austrian regions. I have designed now between Tusi and Burgenland, between Kotor, Herzegovina and Tivat, the Kotor Bay and Upper Austria, my home region, and Budva Cetinje, that's very good, with Salzburg, and Bar Ulcin with Kärnten, and Nikšić, Danilovgrad with Lower Austria, Podgorica with Vienna, that's very logic, and Podgorica, Vienna, I have made already, sorry, Plevia, Pelepole and Sanjak with Tyrol, and then we have Plushine, Savin, Sablak and Mojkovac, Kolašin with Steiermark, and Rošaje, Berane, Plav and Andrejevice with Vorarlberg. That's very logical, and I call the Austrian authorities and the Montenegrin authorities to work in that direction together. And I will also be very active to build these partnerships in the coming weeks. Yes, support Montenegro in the EU. I have now done a lot of videos on my podcast, 100 videos about Montenegro. I have also done a lot on my podcast, my audio podcast, which was also very successful, and I will share that. That's basically always with EU joins NATO, this cross-flagged, maybe you have seen it. It's also a lot of things about Montenegro's history, and I've worked on that one. I have published written an article which I could only publish on LinkedIn, and that's Montenegro as a role model for European Serbia, the contrasting with the two countries, that I still would like to publish. And then I have been in 2000, I have 3 articles which I also would like to highlight because they are also very interesting. And this is about, it's a bit older activity of mine. It is on the Total Montenegro website. It is about tourism development, how to attract tourism, what to reform in the Boka Kotorska. And I have made that one it's already from 2018, but it's a long article, a kind of development concept for the Boka Kotorska. I would like to share that one as well, because that's a region which is very dear to my heart. and I've written also about Herzegovina, about European Montenegro. So because I'm really a long time already active and I have all these concepts ready, I published this one for European Montenegro, for European Herzegovina, and also for the European accession on Total Montenegro website. And then I have also some of my tweets recently were taken over by the online news portals here in Montenegro. That was very good, especially when I wanted to rename the Moscow Bridge the Boris Nemtsov Bridge in the summer, and my protest against the Srpska Kuća. That was also very good. And Srpska Kuća, yeah, exactly. That was taken over. It was very good. I was then also in some of this, yes, online portals. And there was a second one. This is also a favorite project on infrastructure, because I'm now calling so many years already about the Adriatic Highway, and it's not happening. But I see that some progress is a bit done. I have also made a lot of statements on the tunnel from Rošaje to Peja, because that's more important than linking Serbia with the sea. It's more important to link Kosovo with the sea, and to build a tunnel from Peja to Rošaje is very important. And it's also important to have a railway hub in Podgorica for the Southern Balkans, directly connected with Bosnia and with Albania and with Kosovo. So this should be, we have to also infrastructure-wise, we have to isolate Serbia, because it's a pro-Russian state, and so railway and highway and the energy infrastructure has to bypass Serbia, contrary to what is now doing. The EU is funding everything in Serbia, and that's a really big mistake. I made also a very long interview in Kratska TV, where most of the things that was also in the summer, they were also presented here in this beautiful interview on Kratska TV. So it's also, I think they have covered most of the issues, and the advantage in that one is also translated to Montenegrin. You know, that is also very useful, and it's on YouTube, but it's also on this exactly Znam dan Snaš, yeah? And so you have everything online, which is also very useful for Montenegro Goes Europe. Yeah. Then I have written these open letters. I have before, in November 2021, I have already written an open letter towards the Austrian government as a chairman of ETR, Europeans for Tax Reform, but then I have also revised it and written this similar open letter towards the Austrian government on Montenegro policy and all other 9 countries. I've written that one in the summer 2022 after the visit. And I would like to also outline that I have written this op-ed for Malta, Ireland and Austria to join NATO. And I'm always calling all Austrians all Montenegrins in Austria to support my online petition for Montenegro to join, Montenegro joined I have made the petition for Austria to join NATO, because we have to, and I want to explain that as well, we have to attack the Austrian anti-Americanism, the Austrian protectionism and hate against the Balkans, and we have to somehow create a more responsible Austria. And the big issue in Austria, why we are not a normal country, is because we have this kind of idea to be the bridge to Russia, the neutral country, the immoral, unsolidarity country in somewhere who does not really care for the rest of the world. And this we have to attack, and therefore it's so important that Austria joins NATO. I have also continued to do a lot of videos also during my visit here in October 2022 about many issues which are here raising. I will address them, but it's on my YouTube page, and I have this video also on my YouTube page, and I will now recommend to you to watch my YouTube page. It's also full of information about Montenegro and about Albania as well, and North Macedonia, and about Kosovo and about Serbia. All my activities are also documented on my YouTube page, and they're also, sorry, that's a bit loud now, but I have here, from the Balkans and from Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, and also for Belarus, Armenia. I have here this Yeah, I lost 2 subscribers. I had already almost 1,000, and now I lost 2 subscribers. That's also happening, so it's of course worrying. And I have here also the recent things which are important, which I would like to discuss. I'm also tweeting a lot about Montenegro these days because I'm catching up with the development. Unfortunately, I have a bit changed the direction because of recent events where Mr. Triton Abazovic is continuing the support for Open Balkans, is drifting ever more towards the Serbian alliance, and that's very deeply problematic. And so I have now basically called the European Greens to expel him from the European Green Party, because he is certainly not a Green in all aspects, and that's of course absolutely problem. So just that you are not surprised, I have done that. And so there is also clarity, and I hope the European Greens will react, because he's in no way a green activist. I don't know what that means then. He has unfortunately aligned with Serbia on many things, and that's deeply problematic on the Church Treaty, on Open Balkans, and he is also not really very helpful on the issue of EU integration. And here we come to the point. I have again asked here to rename the Moscow Bridge into Boris Nemtsov Bridge, to address the issue of the Srpska Kuća, because that's a provocation and shouldn't be the case. I have also made it very clear that I have now made, that was basically not the endorsement. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the endorsement I made for the mayor of Podgorica, because that's Mr. Vukovic. Yeah, I've never met him, but I have shifted the support now to this traditionalist, Atlanticist, pro-Western, pro-NATO, pro-EU, pro-liberal market reforms people. They are socialists. I'm normally not endorsing socialists, but in that case, I endorse it very much. And I got 172 likes, and I think it is visible that now in the regional elections, it's very important to set a clear sign to support EU, pro-EU parties. Yeah? I see also there is a movement now, a POCRET, developing Europe now. That's very good, you know. It's not the most pro-European forces I was explained, but it's very good that there is some dynamic and some pro-European dynamics. But I unfortunately cannot see so much pro-Europeanness in Triton Bazovic, and I withdraw my support from him. And I hope that is basically the case. I have here basically made a very clear statement against him. And then I have also, I want to follow on the question of the dismissal of the security chief, because this week was also a big conference about the strategic security in Budva, and there was a very problematic thing, because it was here, it is my tweet basically, I have it here, there was a sign here, yes, exactly. I have some likes, 84. Because why the security chief of Montenegro was fired at the conference where they were all speaking. That is for me not a mystery. I accuse Mr. Vucic to be responsible for that one, because here this very pro-Atlanticist personality, I've also not met Mr. Cantera, but he was the chairman of the Atlantic Club of Montenegro for a decade, and then he was appointed by Triton Abazovic in his now the new mandate in April 2022 or May then, and then he was fired immediately now after months in office, because the claim of tobacco smuggling seems to be ridiculous to me. What is really happening is obviously a very clear pro-Western line implemented by the Americans and by this gentleman in his agency, and that had to be stopped by Russia, Serbia via Mr. Abazovic. And now I don't see a lot of pro-Western sentiments left here, and I think it's time for the pro-Western forces to return and to build a broad coalition of a European consensus and to work together and to really bring Montenegro and aligned with Albania and North Macedonia into the European Union, and for Montenegro to leave the open Balkan projects fully, never go to meetings again, and really move significantly and drastically against Serbian political, economic, and Russian political, economic interests in Montenegro. Do it like Kosovo. They have confiscated a lot of properties now and have moved very dramatically against organized criminality, backed up by some politicians, and that is very, very good. And I call for Montenegro to follow the Kosovo principle and the president now of cleaning up the mess. That's very important. And now for the local elections, I hope that I have here some other tweets coming in. So basically, that is my presentation, and that is also the future of the activities which I will do in the coming weeks. Yeah, and I will be very active for European Montenegro in the EU 2024, and make sure that this country is supported as a role model towards fast-track EU accession, and it's absolutely possible to do it, as I have said in this conference, in this video, but also in all my tweets. It's absolutely doable. It's the correct policy. There is no way to wait more further, and we did it also in the 2000s during that times, and it was very successful strategy. Now Mr. Macron doesn't even want to give Kosovo the visa liberalization. I condemn his wrong policy. He doesn't want to protect Europe in general during the case of a Russian nuclear strike. So basically he's repeating all his mistakes. He is inviting Russia for a nuclear strike against Ukraine, because he makes it very clear that he will know nothing, like he has done in the case of Ukraine's NATO membership. I obviously support Ukraine's NATO membership, as I have done in the case of Macedonia, Montenegro, and also now for Bosnia and Kosovo, and also for Austria, and also for all the Eastern European countries in the 90s as EDS chairman, and later in the SME times as well. I'm fully supporting NATO enlargement, because Russia will never attack NATO, and then the countries are safe, and then we don't have war, because deterrence works. And the French have something misunderstood or not understood, and it's a very, very big problem, and it's very dangerous to let the French this kind of dominant role in the European politics. And it's the pity of Germany and the pity of all poor Eastern European countries when the French dominate Western politics, because then everything goes wrong. So I call for strong American alignment, for strong pro-European cooperation, to have a very successful project ahead and time ahead. We will win this war against Russia. We have also the situation that we will have to protect many Ukrainians in the winter. I call Montenegro authorities to prepare winter shelter for the Ukrainians here in Montenegro in an unprecedented manner. There will be 10,000 in the case of Montenegro to be accommodated this winter. I call for the EU to make the EU debt deal, which I have now outlined so often, to support the transition, the rearmament, also the infrastructure payment, building. And this is all very important. It's very expensive. And also Montenegro has huge infrastructure needs, like this the tunnel to Kosovo, like the railway hub, like the Adriatic Highway. And the EU has to come up with a real big debt package of 1.5 trillion in order to win this war and to fund the transition. It's not about a Rammstein group for finances, it's about the EU debt deal, because we can overcome this war and the consequences of the economic war that Russia is waging against us only, and much better, obviously, if we fund it all together in a new EU debt deal. And that's a very good policy, as we have done it in 2020 for the Corona package, and we need another one of that one. Yes, let me conclude maybe to talk about Ukraine. Montenegro is in great solidarity with Ukraine. There are a lot of Ukrainians here. That's very good. Please support Ukraine in the EU and NATO. Support the Euroization of Ukraine. That's very important. and also support Ukrainians this winter in Montenegro. That is very important, and please make sure that you also, if you can, supply Ukraine with weapons and through whatever is possible in the ability of Montenegro to also bring Austria to NATO, so that we also can support Ukraine more. This is also very clear, because we have a good tank industry, we have a good military industry, and we could do much more for Ukraine, and we should do. Yes, if there are any questions in the future, please don't hesitate to ask me and to contact me. I'm always ready, and I will continue for Montenegro Goes EU to be very active and to build up this association, to build up also the links between our two nations, and to make sure that Montenegrins and Austrians are equal under European law, and Montenegro is a member of the European Union as fast as possible. And I will appreciate your support, and I want to thank you very much, and do whatever you can to bring Montenegro in the European Union 2024. Thanks a lot for attending, for listening, and for cooperation, and please support Montenegro in the European Union. Bye.